Welcome to the Pedal Collaborative podcast. We're so glad you're here.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pedal Collaborative podcast. I am Paul, and I'm here with my friend Alan.
Hello.
And we're back, continuing our signal chain series. And a little housekeeping before we get into Reverb. We realized when we were talking through after last episode, we both got way too excited about delay. And that resulted in us, one, losing the format a little bit. And two, I completely disregarded Alan saying, let's not talk about all the ones we've owned. Let's just talk about our highlights. And I just listed all the delays I've ever owned. So that was pretty unfortunate that we got so excited. But we're back, and we're not going to get that excited about Reverb. That's probably a lie.
It's a lie. But I kind of feel like the image I have in my head is that we're getting ready for the homecoming dance, right? We're in high school. We're getting ready for the homecoming dance, and we're so excited. And we're at our houses, we're texting each other. Maybe I don't know if, we're oh, well, what delay are you using? I don't know. What delay are you using? And we kind of forget to put on pants. And then we're it's an hour after the dance is supposed to have started, and we're still standing there texting about delays without pants. And our moms come in guys, what are you doing?
Yeah, how are you still talking about that? Yeah, why are you not prepared? Why are you not ready? You guys have pictures in 10 minutes. Exactly. I even laughed a little bit while editing that I went back and saw that at the beginning of the episode, I was I think you like delay more than me. And then we both just word vomited how excited we were. And I was maybe this is a lie. I might have lied publicly. It's not the first and it's not the last time that I'll say something that might be only half true.
I mean, let's be fair. Let's be reasonable. You and I are both in the nation of the United States of America, and we're in a political season. So I think it's just understandable that we're all lying right now.
Fake news is abounding. Yes, that's true. All right, cool. I'm fine with that.
Can I say that and still be apolitical in that?
It's just a matter of fact now. So It doesn't matter which side's doing it. Everyone's doing it.
Right.
So that's our housekeeping. I just wanted to own the fact that I got too excited about delay and we lost the narrative. So we're back. And we are talking reverb today. So time-based effects continue. So I know we dipped our toe into reverb when we were talking about how delay and reverb overlap. But Alan, do you want to give a little recap? You don't have to go super deep, and then we can get into talking some verbs.
Sure. Well, okay. So we kind of talked about delay being a time-based thing where you have an initial attack that then gets repeated, and it gets repeated within a certain area of time and within a certain distance from that initial attack. So simply put, you can have the initial attack, and then you could have a 500 millisecond delay until the next attack comes. And then you could have that trail, or so to speak, all those taps continue until however long you want. That's delay. Reverb takes that same kind of concept of initial attack of sound, and then it just kind of reflects it. Let me take a slight step back. Take that delay that you're playing and put it into a physical space. So maybe you are, in your bathroom doing a little solo EP. Maybe you're in a stadium. Maybe you're in a cave. Maybe in your parents' basement. I don't know where you are, but you're playing this music, and the music that you're playing is coming out of the sound source and hitting all of the surfaces that are around you. So whether it's walls, ceilings, floors, persons, whatever the case is, you have that sound then bouncing around, and as it's doing so, it is decaying in its intensity, and typically with reverb, it's done so kind of in a smooth way. And so you're taking that time effect and you're smearing it across both space and time.
That is a great synopsis and beautiful description. And I think also what's neat about, and maybe I'm trying to think this through as I say it, but reverb in general, I feel as if most of them out there on the market, all the words you just used to describe how the effect works are actually generally the knobs are corresponded in a way that is easier to understand than some of the others out there.
Yeah.
Because it's, your most traditional is like, your space. You're kind of picking a space. If you have a pedal with multiple algorithms, you're picking between like a hall, a cathedral, etc. You're mixing that. You're seeing how wet you want it to be. All that. So I think that was a really apt description.
Thank you.
So I'll throw this one to you because I talked first about delay. So for you with Reverb in a practical application, so when we both talked about delay, and we talked about how, I like to have a multi-effects and analog and a simple digital for tweaking, which note, you said in between episodes talking about that made you realize you might need a second delay on your board to play with. So that was you were influenced by talking about it.
You are an influencer.
Yes, thank you.
Because yes, I need another delay. And I'm using the word need very loosely here.
Oh yeah.
But I'm currently going on this rampage internally of like, I need, what I need, Paul, what I need is this. I need the Keeley Halo, but I want to make sure it's the right one. So I tried out the Halo Core, super awesome, but it was missing a couple things. Like it doesn't have presets. It doesn't have like a tapping light. Really great for what it is. It's just not what I need. So I have what I think is my 15th Halo coming. I grabbed one. I'm lying. I mean, it's got to be 4 or 5, but not, I'm checking that out. I grabbed the Strymon Dig V2. Spoiler alert, don't like it. I currently have also the Walrus, the Mako series, the D1 V2. And so I want to have that Halo sound, and I just want to make sure that I get the right one, And yes, I can do it on the LVX, but I want
it's fun to have a second. It's fun to have a second one.
It's fun to have a second. Yeah, and I think as I was telling you, what I like about the golden ratio timing of the Halo is that I can feed it into the LVX or vice versa, and those kind of those mathematically not touching time signatures really keep it clean when you're stacking delays.
Yep.
We just now went back into delay.
I was going to say, so back to my question was, what kind of verbs, what's your like practical application? How do you use Reverb? What do you need? Yeah. We're putting big quotes around that on your board. Just talk to us about Reverb, and then, we'll go from there.
Okay. So for the longest time, Reverb for me was practical, and it was really just kind of the glue that kind of kept it all together, that tied it all together. And when I say for the longest time, like I'm talking through like the several decades of playing in, whether it's like a house of worship style thing or the bands that I was in, a lot going on musically. So having these really washy reverbs just weren't working for what I was doing. But I don't love the sound of, well, hold on. I love the sound of my tone dry. And I think it's the foundation, right? Like every step along the way is like, you have to kind of love what you're doing till you get to the end of your chain, which is for me that reverb. But I don't like the full gamut of all of my effects completely dry at the end, because it just feels like I'm stuck within a computer and there's no life to it. So at the bare minimum, I want to have some simple plate reverb or something that's not very high in the mix, not very long in the decay, but just enough that it feels like there's physical space to what you're doing. So for the longest time, that was what reverb was to me. And so it would be something simple. I mean, honestly, I posted a few weeks back my board from like the 2014 era, and I think, well, I don't know did I have the Blue Sky, the Strymon Blue Sky on that board, or was it the Descent by Walrus?
It was the Descent, because I had the Blue Sky in the picture I posted of my same time period one, and you had the Descent, which is, they discontinued that pedal. That was actually their first Verb, I believe. Yeah.
I don't know if they did. I'm going on their website right now just to see if you're lying again.
I'm not. Well, while you do that, I'll talk for a sec. So
thank you.
Actually, similarly, especially like kind of like early on getting into effects, I feel like reverb to me, there was a lot more reverbs now than there were like 20 years ago. Just in general, like cooler ones that kind of have more specific applications, but also a lot of like the bigger boxes with the wide ranging effects. I feel like the Eventide Space was really like the only big one out there at the time.
Even before the Big Sky came out?
I think the Space was before the Big Sky for sure, right?
Okay.
Pretty
I
sure.
don't know. There's no way of knowing.
I'm pretty sure that it was. But I found reverb just to be something that like kind of came at the end, created that little bit of distance. And for me, for a long time, I had a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe with like the onboard reverb tank. And so I would just kind of use that as like the always on just back of my signal chain, literally in my amp. Just that was my reverb. And I didn't actually have a dedicated pedal. Like I got one pretty quickly, but like for like, let's say a year and a half of playing with a pedal board, I just like ended on my board at delay and then went into my amp with reverb.
Okay. So essentially creating the same thing that I was like, it's just a little bit
that's what I was gonna say. I was like, same idea. It's just, I always had like, and for a long time, I would just always make sure an amp, like any amp I bought had reverb. That changed at some point. Actually, I think that changed with the Strymon Blue Sky, where I was like, oh, this has some settings that can be always on and then a favorite for crazy. Did you find out if the Descent's still around?
The Descent is still around. It's still around. I mean, I just added it to my cart on the walrusaudio.com.
Just to see if you could.
To see if I could. Yeah. So, why was I looking that up? Because we were debating.
We were just mentioning you had it, and then I was talking about how I had a similar relationship early on to reverb, and then you were going to come back to how you use reverb practically.
Okay. Well, okay. So practically, for the longest time, it was really just kind of that glue at the end of the chain to kind of give it that space. And then I got onto, I mean, I forget what year it was. It was shortly after the Strymon came out with the Blue Sky and Shimmer, which was like that. Was it an octave and fifths or just a fifth up? Whatever the case was, it was all of the rage for the longest time. Like all the rage. So I had a Blue Sky and I loved it. And then I kind of got bored with it after a while because it was like you couldn't really tweak a whole lot on those first versions. Like it was either Shimmer on or no reverb. But then that kind of got me then into the Descent, because the Descent by Walrus has a shimmer mode, but it also had Hall and it had reverse and a bunch of presets you could use to. And you had
control of the octaves too.
You had control over the octaves, a lot more control. And so then like I started using the Descent, and I was using it. Actually, that was a time I had a Fender Rhodes and killed with the Descent. Like the Descent it made that Rhodes glorious.
Yeah, I believe I sold you that Descent too, actually.
You probably did.
Yeah, because I got like one of the first ones that came out because I was also trying to get off of the Blue Sky.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Which fast forward some like however many, like 20 years, the Blue Sky now, the V2 has controllable shimmer. So like you don't have to have it always on. Like you can adjust it. So So reverb now is, it kind of more is a sound design tool for me. And some of that is, well, largely in part because of Meris releasing the Mercury X, which is their modular stereo reverb, that like the LVX, there are so many different elements to it that you can bring in. So, much like the series of LVX videos that we've done on the YouTube channel, where we've emulated a bunch of other sounds or other classic delays, the Mercury X has created that same thing for reverbs. And so for me now, it becomes like, how big of a reverb can I make? Like how wild can it be? And instead of the reverb practically, air quoting, just being the way that you kind of tie it all together at the end, it is almost like how do you use it as somewhat the foundation of the sound I'm going to go for and then build into it? Meaning, if I want to have this massive space of sound that I can get out of a big reverb, how do I then build delays into that flow well into the end result? Or how do I add chorus or trim or whatever the case is, and then walking backwards to make sure that I'm building into that end result that I want, as opposed to like with delay, I oftentimes look at it the backwards, where I'm taking, how does my delay work with what's ahead of it? The reverb becomes, now it's like, what can I build into it to get the result that I'm wanting?
Yeah, I think that's just even listening to your playing, I feel like your reverbs have become one incredible. You've done a lot of great emulations with the Mercury X.
Thank you, thank you.
And I do feel like, especially even the EP you did a couple years ago, like it became like it had a lot of the reverb had a lot of character and was much more than just that little bit of space separation that you were originally talking about. It was sort of like a main character in the mixes, but in a way that wasn't just like space, but kind of all of the things that affect space because of the way the Mercury X can really do. And I feel like that was actually before then, and the Mercury X might have been born out of. It might have been born out of the way you were stacking other reverbs at the time of like, well, now I can do this in this really cool machine.
Yeah, so that EP, I think it was a lot of Strymon Night Sky actually.
Oh yeah, because we both had Night Skies. Because I influenced you on that one too. I was like, you should get a Night Sky. I think you'd like it.
Okay. So I pulled up my board from that season, and reverbs came out of the hologram microcosm.
Okay.
I believe I think there's some reverb on the M1, like the Walrus M1. I think I have to go back and look at that. The Strymon Volante with its spring reverb, the Strymon Night Sky, and then I had the Walrus ACS1 at the very tail end. That was like my amp sim, but it also has reverb in it.
Yeah. So yeah, I was going to say, stacking all the verbs there and creating all those things is now the Mercury X has sort of given you that in one big machine. Do you have anything else on your board regularly? Is it just the Mercury X? Because I know you've toyed around, especially like with playing live once in a while here. What's your board doing now?
So live, it's really just the Mercury X because it's while it is a larger sized pedal, it's a single reverb that if I want something simple and basic, like I want just a spring or a hall, I can do that. But if I want to go wild, it's in there too. And because of all the presets, it's easy to get a hold of.
Yeah. And that is for me the Mercury X. I have not played with that one yet, actually, even though you've had it for a while, just because I've actually somewhat intentionally not dove in,
right? Because
I know I will get lost, and that will be fun for gear, but not necessarily for making and finishing music.
Well, yeah, but you do have. Okay, so look. So before I just tell everybody what you have, why don't you tell us what you have? What are you? Since we're talking about like what I'm using now, like what are you using now? And then we can go back to like your kind of your journey. Yeah.
So I currently have, I think, 2 reverbs that are on my board, and well, I guess 3 if you include. So end of signal, I still do the thing that we talked about of my current end of chain reverb is actually the reverb that is built into the UA Dream.
Gotcha.
Which is a Fender reverb emulation. So basically exactly what I used to do back in the day, I still do at the end of my signal path. And cool. That one sort of stays as just kind of like that little bit of splash. Like if you hit a chord really hard, you like hear it like a little bit.
The thwop.
Yeah. And I go up and down with that depending on what I'm recording or what I'm writing, but that one's kind of always on a little bit. And then the bulk of my reverbs recently, that anything you've heard or anything I've recorded, has actually been just the reverb on the Mood Mark II.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like my first line of, if we're doing gain staging like on a drive, like my first reverb stage is the Mood Mark II, and it's kind of like at like a little bit into the hi-fi section of it, but the clock is just past midnight. So it's like a lower, darker reverb on the clock.
By midnight, do you mean noon?
Yes, noon, midnight. Technically the same time on a clock. So
no, I know. I just make sure that I was on the.
I'm going to say midnight. You can say noon. So, but anyhow,
this is just further evidence of how metal you are, because you turned noon into midnight.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I realized I have a third reverb, but we'll go through the main ones. So I have the Mood is like a lot of like if I just have a kind of a washy verb that's not really anything super crazy, that's been that one.
Yeah.
I have the little brother. Once again, as I mentioned, I have the Polymoon. I have the Mercury 7 from Maris. And that one has been kind of set to some of my crazier out there. I really love the octave down reverb on that. It is really, really like texturally rich and really neat. And I also love the cathedral setting on that pedal is just an unbelievably good sounding, big, like thick reverb.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've messed with that one. Yeah, you've had a Mercury 7 before?
I have.
Yeah, the auto swell that you can set the time to is a really cool feature on that one.
Yeah.
So I like that a lot. And then I realized the third one I have is part of a pedal that's I talked about a few episodes back, but the Black Hole Symmetry from Collision Devices, that has the reverb on it. And that reverb's cool because like it does have like a shimmer effect where you can actually blend the shimmer in and also control how far it goes into a fifth.
Yes.
So I do have 3 reverbs, but that one I feel like I use them sort of like they're never all on. They sort of like have their own spots. The mood sometimes I'll stack with the Mercury 7. The Mercury 7 is the one that gets stacked with the other 2 the most. That's kind of like the, hey, we need some big guns for a specific part of a song. Let's throw in the Mercury 7.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm playing with now. And frankly, that setup isn't too different than what I've always sort of used. Like once I got into moving past amp reverb, I'd always have like something that could get wacky and something that could be basic. Yeah. And for me, for a long time, that was actually the EHX Cathedral was my wacky. And I had just like a TC Electronics Hall of Fame as like my normal quote unquote reverb.
Right.
For a while.
I see that. So wait, you have 3 reverbs on your board, but you also have 3 delays on your board.
I only have 2 delays on my board right. Well, no, that's a lie too, because the mood can be a delay as well. All I have on my board right now is the timeline and the collision devices, the Black Hole Symmetry.
Got it.
So, which I actually have to send you something after this that I made yesterday that I think you'll like a lot. So
please do.
But
so you mentioned so let's talk real quick about the I don't care. I love the Maris stuff. So this is an unofficial plug that I'm pushing for them. But the reason why I like the Mercury X so much, aside from just how in my brain just easily uses it, and I find the menus and the UI to be glorious and super easy, even though there's a lot to do. What I love about it is like I was really wanting to find that one reverb pedal that I could say like this is just my reverb. Like it's the thing. It's the end of it. I don't need to have a ton of reverbs. I want that one, kind of like the LVX is for my delay. And I didn't want to get the Mercury X because I didn't want it to be both big boxes from the same company. And then at the time I had, you know what? Actually, I was chatting with Jenna over at Maris, and I was kind of going between the Chase Bliss CXM 1978 and was messaging with them about like, hey, I really like the Mercury 7 and I really like the CXM 1978. Or I want to like I'm sorry, I think at the time I didn't have the 78 yet. So I was going to say, like, I said to them, you released the LVX. Do you have anything coming out for reverb? Because if not, I want to check out the 1978. And Jenna, she had said like, well, you know that we made the algorithms for the 1978. So I was like, I did not know that. And then of course, like I realized or was, evidence that CXM is Chase Bliss times Maris. And that Maris actually made the algorithms for the 1978. And so I bought the 1978. It was fantastic and glorious. It has 3 killer reverbs, like a hall, a plate, and a room. So fantastic. And then shortly after I got that, Maris had announced that they were coming out with the Mercury X. And in the Mercury X, this is like a long explanation for this. In the Mercury X, you have, it's basically, like you said, the big brother of the Mercury 7. So you have the Cathedra and you have the Ultra Plate, which are the 2 main ones for the Mercury 7. But you also get the 78 Hall, the 78 Room, and 78 Plate algorithms that are in the 1978. And then, obviously, like the hardware is different, and some of those elements make it a different sound. But I was like, well, dang, if it's already in there, I love the sounds from the 1978. I just didn't know if I needed like a $900 reverb pedal. So in a way, the Mercury X kind of became my way of getting two fantastic pedals, and then some, because I think it has like a spring in there. It has a gravity and a prism, which are two new ones that they've made. So like it had everything that I wanted all in one box.
Love that. And I will say, as I mentioned up front before realizing when you got it, because also I don't remember when anything happened in the COVID years. You have really made that thing shine, because I've been impressed with, similarly to when we were talking about the LVX of all the emulations, I feel like some of the things you've made in the Mercury X are just like some of the better sounding reverbs I've heard. And I joked, and we've had an ongoing joke if it's a little too hi-fi for me.
Right. It is. It's pretty hi-fi.
It's a little bit that I have, even though I like have some really high fidelity pedals. I just like to tell you, like, oh, it's a little too hi-fi for me. It should be more lo-fi. But it is a fantastic pedal. I do have interest in checking it out and messing around with it at some point. It's just I want to finish some of the things I'm working on instead of upending my life and getting into another multi-effects pedal, which is what happens to me.
Well, I think so I'm going to announce this little plan that we have, knowing that we're also we're time stamping this episode. So like at some point, this is going to be so far in the past that it doesn't really matter. But currently, as we're recording, you and I are in the process of, I think I have another Mercury X on the way to me.
Yes,
now.
I wasn't sure if we were going to mention this, so here, go ahead. Why not? We'll let everyone know.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm getting another one in, and I'm getting it in via trade. But so what I'm going to do is, what Paul and I have decided to do is we're going to take the original Mercury X that I have, and I'm going to completely wipe it from all of the stock presets. Because you can grab those easily from the website, or when you do whatever, they're easy to get. We're going to fill up, I think, 80% full of all pedal collaborative presets on the Mercury X. And not quite sure yet what we're doing with it, but we're not keeping it. How about that?
Yes, there will be, in some form or fashion, there will be a Mercury X available with all of the presets and emulations of every other reverb loaded up on it.
Yeah.
With a few banks to spare as well.
Yes. And to be fair, like you can, anybody who's a part of our monthly collaborators on Patreon has access to all of our presets already. But we have not yet ever had one filled up that is not for us to like
keep.
Not
a pedal that we use.
To selfishly keep. Yeah. But I do need to get, once I get that loaded up, I am going to get it into your hands to just kind of let you QC it and make sure that secretly I'm going to get you hooked on it, but whatever.
We joke about selling it, but me keeping it was, I think, what we talked about the other day of, we're going to have me quality test it, and then this is never true. But no, I think, well, okay, so we could talk about the Mercury X forever. I know that we didn't want to do a Maris pitch. We kind of do Maris pitches all the time, though. I actually just did recently on our guitar pedals. Someone put out a post of besides Strymon, Walrus Audio, and one other company, who do you think is like a builder that their whole lineup is consistent? And I just wrote Maris period and didn't say anything else.
Yeah.
Got some upvotes.
Did you get any downvotes on that?
I don't know. I never look at that.
Yeah.
But
I
wanted to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask a bit more. So you've landed at the Mercury X. You started at Spring Reverbs. We mentioned we both had some Strymon stuff. I know you've had a Night Sky and a Blue Sky. We both had Flints, but just tell a little bit more about your journey, and then we'll get into ones that we both want to try.
I mean, honestly, my journey, I just paused it. We kind of talked a little bit about it a little bit ago, where Blue Sky and then the Descent. I never got a Flint actually. At least not in my playing, not earlier on when it was out. I've had it and looked at it, but I thought to myself after the Blue Sky, I was like, well, Strymon had released the Big Sky. I'll get that because I also had the timeline and I liked it and I loved all of the MIDI controllability of it. And again, it's I can get all these different reverbs because out of one box. So I had the Big Sky, and then I realized, just like with the timeline, I only ever use one setting, period. So why do I have this massive, $400 box that I'm only using one thing on? So got rid of it. I don't even know if I filled that void back in besides, something on my amp at the time. Or sometimes I'll put I was using the L cap a bit at that time frame, and I had it set up to really kind of like trail out into a reverb. Because again, reverb's delay. It's just smeared out, right? So I just had that L cap smeared out. And then I took my little like siesta, and then when I came back to the pedal world, that's when like I dived into Chase Bliss stuff, and I got the Dark World and I checked that out, but it's mono, so I didn't love it. A bunch of the Keeley stuff, which really great sounds, but again, mono, didn't love it. I for a minute wanted the Earthquaker Devices Avalanche run to be like my quick grab and go delay and reverb, and I loved.
It was more than a minute. It was like for at least 2 hours, because you like the Halo you mentioned earlier. I think you've had like 5 or 6 Avalanche runs because you keep wanting it to be your end all solution.
Right. I do. And the issue, so here's the thing. It's a love-hate thing. The reverb is phenomenal. It's probably like, if you were to say, all right, what is your one reverb sound that that could be the only reverb sound that you ever used and be okay with? It would be the plate reverb that's on the Avalanche run. It is so deep and so wide and so glorious. I love it. But for some dumb reason, the delay on that pedal is just mono. It's a dual mono. So there is no movement. There's no space on it. And literally, if the reverb was off, it would just sound like a mono delay. And no, thank you. I'm not into that.
No, mono is like a cardinal sin to you, so that makes sense. I also will say, having played with one of your Avalanche runs, I forget which one, the reverb is incredible. The delay, I wasn't necessarily that upset about dual mono because I don't really care either way, which we'll talk about on another episode. But
that will be the episode that's titled "Why Are We Still Friends?"
Yes, but the delay was a little bit like more wonky to control than I would think for a pedal that seemed so face value easy.
The delay.
Yeah, the delay.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like a little weird and out there. So yeah, I guess just to go back there, the Avalanche run was sort of like your love again, on again, off again relationship. And I feel like the Mercury X sort of cured you. You haven't really got a new reverb other than maybe like, I'll get one and you'll like check it out. And since you've had that as a main squeeze reverb.
I mean, I've tried. You're right. Before the Mercury X came out, because like the Mercury 7 wasn't enough for me. Because it only had those two sounds, and I mentioned it on some videos. We've not really talked about it, but I don't love the UI on the small boxes because it has those secondary. Every single knob has a secondary function that I forget what they are,
and I know that the overlays that I have.
I know, and the overlays are fantastic, and I recommend them to everyone. I just have never used them. So it's like, yeah, that's a great thing to do. I just never did. I tried like the Death by Audio rooms, loved it. Just was a little bit too esoteric. It got a little weird for me, and just couldn't be my only one. I've tried the Blue Sky V2. It's way better. It is way better than
the Blue Sky
V2
is one of the better recent pedals that I think Strymon has put out, because moving that shimmer to a dedicated knob, adding the MIDI functionality, going with the TRS stereo jack.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yes.
A lot of quality of life upgrades that I was tempted. I borrowed that one from you for a bit, and I was like, do I need this? And I was like, at the time I had the slower, let's see, the slower. I
was just about to say that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The slower. I have your old slower. Slower. Yes, because I borrowed that from you, and I was like, yeah, you're not getting this one back. This is staying with me, because it's really cool pedal.
Well, I think the slower can that is this is a good place to divide reverbs in the modern times. Because we've talked about like amp driven reverbs, there's spring, and there's then like the quote unquote like, like the CXM 1978 is a hall, a plate, in a room. Those are all very specific types of spaces that are being emulated. But when we talk about, honestly, the shimmer that kind of came in with the blue sky, we talk about the big sky, we talk about slower, and Mercury X with what it can do. We're actually now getting into the kind of the ambient, atmospheric, and experimental type of reverbs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which is the two that I keep on my desk all the time are the slower and the afterneath, because they are just weird. They can create pads. If you stack them into each other, you get really weird sounds. And the slower, I mean, you did your pitch for the Mercury X, you little Maris pick. So Walrus Audio, I will say, I had a Descent early on, the one we mentioned earlier. And I was actually really not impressed with that as far as like the whatever version 1 of that was. It didn't do much for me. I literally had it for maybe 2 weeks, and I think I flipped it to you because you were like, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
And so honestly, for a while, I didn't look at Walrus Audio for effects like reverb, just because I was like, maybe they're like a drive-in fuzz house, because I really liked their drives and fuzz. And then they started to add like choruses that were really cool. But honestly, from the time when I had the Descent till I borrowed the slower from you, I had messed with them in shops, but not really been like super keen on Walrus Audio reverbs. And that slower just like completely caught me off guard.
Yeah.
The like, especially like the stereo spread on it is like just incredibly syrupy and like all encompassing. And then those 5 algorithms are just incredible.
They really are.
Plus the fun X knob and stretch where you can do some of the stuff like the weird clock shifting stuff. It's just a great pedal. Absolutely love that pedal. Yeah. And I could talk about it for a long time. But we have videos on the secondary functions and stuff, so I don't need to talk about it here.
We do have videos of that. Actually, it just also brought to my mind, like, I think even to date, our most viewed video that we have on the YouTube is the slower versus Strymon Cloudburst, which I think last time I checked was almost 10,000 views, which for us is like wild and crazy. And so thank you so much to everybody who watched it. I know my mom watched it like 9,000 times, but you know, that's another one. The Strymon Cloudburst. They took the cloud algorithm out of the big sky, which is probably their most popular, and made it its own thing. And that's a fun little reverb if you want that specific sound.
Yeah. No, the Cloudburst is super cool. I had, again, the Walrus Audio slower, you lent it to me and it never left. I think that video that you made actually made me realize I didn't need the Cloudburst, because I was like, oh yeah, the slower is much more my speed, because it does some of those things, but it does a lot of other things. Yeah. And I also think Walrus did a good job they've posted this a few times, but what I like about the slower, and to the fact that shimmer verbs we talked about, which I realized you said 20 years earlier, it was like 10 years ago, maybe 15 that was out.
I don't know. I mean, maybe COVID 15. Was in between that time, and so like...
So yeah, we aged like 75 years there, so we're actually 105 now. But the slower is like a reverb that does some of the shimmery type things, but for people who don't like the sound of the shimmery type things.
Yes.
And that was like immediately appealing to me when I like plugged it in for the first time, and it was like complete joy of atmospheric sounds without some of that like texture that I think became synonymous with like the 2010 era of reverb. Right. That like it was novel at the time, and it's just kind of tired now. So anyhow, we could wax poetic about ones we've had and liked for a while, as we do on every episode, but getting back to a format we were using for this signal chain series that we missed on delay, I'm actually going to ask delay and reverb.
Okay.
So think of both. What's one you want to try of both pedals?
That I know that's already out, or that I know that's coming out?
We can't leak information here, so let's say that's out already.
Oh gosh, I don't think. This sounds dumb. I don't think there is anything that I'm wanting to try, because I have like a crap load of stuff on my desk right now to try. I'm looking at like how many. I've got 2 Champion Lexi things. I've got Caroline Kilobyte. I've got the Catalan Bread, Adeneko, the Death by Audio Space Bender, the Benson, their delay. I think that's all I have right now. To still try.
Yeah, and some of those I took for their paces, so you haven't done it yet because
Right.
you were traveling, so you'll have to do that. But
So
so
unfortunately,
your
I
answer
can't-
is nothing right now.
Yeah, and I know, and that's pathetic.
That's
for
fine.
us.
You get stuff to try. You don't have to be. No, I have answers, so you don't have to have them.
I mean, I can say this. I mean, it's not leaking anything. I'm not going to leak what I know that hasn't been announced yet.
Okay.
Minus the fact that I know that Strymon's going to come out with their timeline, like their second timeline. Like that's
Yes,
just a
which we talked
given.
about last episode. Yes.
Oh no, dude. So sorry. Timeline. Definitely want to try it. I have my suspicions on whether or not I'll keep it. I won't, but I definitely want to try it. I will say, did you see the Instagram post a few days ago that Walrus, like they were talking? It was this picture of somebody there in their like office studio playing guitar, and they're like shooting videos of things to come, and they had it all blurred out, but there was a little GIF of, is it GIF or GIF? What is it?
It's GIF.
GIF. Okay, thank you. I'm not showing my age. I'm 105. A little GIF of a shark next to the like blurred out pedal. So shark is their symbol for the Mako series. So my suspicion
Pretty fun.
is that there is either a new Mako series, like a new pedal for the Mako series, or completely new Mako series. That's also.
Well, also they've been blowing out the prices in the Mako
Yes.
series since like the beginning of summer. So it's,
Yes.
seems like I actually did miss that. That was probably when I was in the mountains, so I probably didn't see it. But
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Well, yeah, and
But-
I'm excited for anything. And that, since we just talked about the slower fall, anything new they come out with in this space, I'm like, I'll check it out. We'll see what's up.
Yeah. Because what I like about the Mako series, and I've tried, I mean, at this point I actually tried them all because I have them all sitting here from all the V1s, sitting here from that recent haul that you and I had. But what I like about them all is that they cover, in a single pedal format, they're covering the same space, generally speaking, as like a Timeline, Big Sky, LVX, Mercury X. They're going everything from simple, basic, to experimental in whatever function is that you're doing, modulation, reverb, delay. The ACS one, the amp one's a little bit different. It doesn't really get experimental, so to speak, but that's okay. The R1, the D1, the M1 all cover all of those spaces in a single format. And that's really cool. So if there is a V2 series coming out, I'm super stoked for those.
Yes. Okay. So you did have an answer. You just also first were like overwhelmed by having not tried all the things that I were sent your way after I tried them all. So, okay. Got it.
Yes.
So Mako and New Timeline. We're just going to say those as your answers.
Yes.
So my delay is one we have talked about. I really want to try the Flower Petals Dahlia, their dual analog delay.
Yeah.
That's one I've had my eye on for a while. I just haven't pulled the trigger because I have too many other things to play with, and it's one that I think I'm going to end up getting in the near future just because I think it's got a lot of cool things going on. And a dual analog delay, very cool pedal format as well because it's small, like the Mako series.
Right.
And I've just been kind of curious about Flower Petals for a while because they have cool artwork, and it seems like from any video I've watched that they make like really quality stuff.
Sure.
So that is my delay I want to try. And then the reverb I want to try, I was thinking about that, like knowing we were doing this episode, but then we talked yesterday and it's coming my way. I'm really excited to try that Skitsy, the Champion Lecky Skitsy.
Oh, yeah.
It's black with Halloween style artwork, so win for me. But also the fact that it's just like a really kind of out there reverb, with the modulations, the trems, the tapey type effects, and then all sorts of different control over the waveform. I feel like I'm gonna have a lot of fun with that one. So the reverb I'm looking forward to trying is the one that you're sending my way next. So
it's actually in my hands right now. I didn't tell you this. It's a matte black too.
Oh man, it's definitely it's a keeper. I don't even need to play it. It's a keeper.
You remember the Kilobyte? Remember, because we have like the limited edition Knight Rider version of the Kilobyte.
Yes,
the Caroline one that's like a matte black. This is mattier a word? More matty? Matt?
We can say that. It's more matty. Mattier? Matty? Yeah.
More mattier.
More matte.
Yeah. So yeah, you're gonna like it. That's
cool. But yeah, I those two pedals, the Dahlia and the Skitsy are ones I'm really excited to try. So looking forward to both.
Nice.
And knowing one is already en route, so that's also
I need
exciting.
it. So I need to ship it to you because I'm about to head out of the country for a bit. So for work, I'm gonna just
probably
ship
do
that
that
to
so
you.
I can play with it.
And the CB, I have that CB that you want to try.
Yeah, everyone at the end of the episode here is getting a little inside baseball into us sending things back and forth. But
we've kind of shifted from like episode recording to like just our normal conversations.
Yeah, that's fine. That's what we joked about the format being, with a little bit of production. But no, well, let's wrap up Reverb. I know as we talked last week, I like the analogy Alan made of like we kind of add it to our toolkit to talk about. Reverb will come back. We'll also, as we talk to guests and stuff, we'll ask them about effects. I'm sure a lot of folks' favorite effect is Reverb. And keep your eye on the channel for some reviews of the things we mentioned. Honestly, I think that's probably a funny thing as these come out. A lot of the things we've mentioned at the ends of episode are things we want to try or builders we want to check out. Generally, that's going to mean, just based on both our personalities, that within a few weeks, you'll probably see a video or hear about it from us, because it means that if we're talking about it, which means we're gassing for it, which means it's probably going to end up in one of our hands very quickly, and then we'll share it and talk about it. So keep an eye out for, some Champion Lecky stuff, reviews from one of us in the near future.
Is it Lecky or Lexi?
I don't know. I'm saying Lecky. It's 2 C's.
Okay.
It's a Philly guy. It's probably Lecky.
But he's Scottish.
Even more so, I think that now. But yes, and I know we sort of mentioned and alluded to it earlier with the Mercury X that we're going to load up with our presets. But I'm not very good at plugs. We're not very good at plugs in general. We just talk about gear we like. If you are interested in any of the presets that you've seen in videos or want to hear more from us, you can subscribe to our Patreon, which will give you some presets, give you access to past content. We do drop videos early there, and just sort of a teaser, there will be some Patreon exclusive podcast episodes in the future. Yeah. Some little tease there. And we got some more stuff we're just excited to share with you all. So if you are not on there, there's a free tier if you just want to kind of keep up with the news, but also if you want to, get some presets, you can subscribe as a patron as well. So
we there is a way to get one preset each, one for the LVX and one for the Mercury X for free on the Patreon.
Yes. So go check it out either way. We don't mind giving things away. That's, we do fun stuff here.
Yeah.
So check those out. And then next week, we will be getting into the final stage of Signal Chain, which is amps, amp sims, and all the things that, sum up the end of your signal. So look forward to that, and we will see you guys all soon.
Sweet. Take care, everybody.